Welcome, Michelle. We are here with Michelle Roberts, who is a leader in the environmental justice movement throughout the national level, I should say. Michelle, welcome.
Thanks, Maria. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Michelle, we have known each other for a while. You're a Delaware girl, born and bred. You've been a leader in issues dealing with environmental injustice. Tell us what drew you to be so passionate in your work with fence line communities.
Oh, thank you, Maria. It began with my family and friends. I am formerly an environmental scientist, and I want to say I'm still an environmental scientist. However, while working as an environmental scientist back in the 80s in Delaware, I began to notice a significant number of deaths. One being in east side of Wilmington, a community group called Neighbors Rebuilding Our Neighborhood. Cecilia Hoey was a community leader. And Cecilia began to notice the number of the sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS at that particular time. It was a high cluster. And we found correlation to respiratory distress with these children. And that was the beginning, if you will. But then it catapulted into my family and my friends, where I began witnessing family members sick of all types of egregious cancers, friends as well in my own age group. And as young people say, their ride or dies, well, many of my ride or dies are already dead. So many of my friends from Wilmington had, again, very egregious cancers. And one friend moved to Delaware from Michigan and was in Delaware for, I want to say, 25, 30 years. And she now died a few years ago from brain cancer. So that was the beginning of my becoming more engaged and involved in making connections between that of industrial source pollution and where people live, work, play, and pray, as we call that in environmental justice.
So thank you for painting that picture. The communities that live in areas overburdened with pollutants are very aware of the health impacts. In general, I think a lot of society is not. So this is a really important topic. So the Green Amendment for the Delaware State Constitution would especially help vulnerable communities already overburdened with pollution from so many different sources of exposure, as you were talking about, Michelle. Why is it important that fence line communities have a seat at the table?
Oh, Maria, it is exceptionally important. It begins by what you initially said. The community members know what is going on in their communities for most part. And equally, many of the community members have lived in these communities for decades. So they have watched and witnessed changes within their communities. They know the connections. The problem is that they don't have the political reach to the decision makers oftentimes. Oftentimes decisions are made long before the communities are engaged. We often hear, come join us to talk about the comprehensive plan for your community. Oftentimes, the comprehensive plan has already been created without you, and you, the community, are just coming in to make comments on an already created plan. What is important for us to understand is that we have a legacy, and especially in Delaware, it is a quirky kind of historical legacy we have in Delaware with the Mason-Dixon line, running between the state, just through the state. And, that is very important for us to understand, especially in today's political times, because the land use planning, the economic development plans, and all of those other things have evolved over time based on the historical legacy of the history of the great state of Delaware. What does that mean? It means we still reside in a state or have a state where the Mason-Dixon line cuts between the North and the South, and it is just like that, the North and the South. And in addition to that, we also put race factors. And so therefore, we had laws based on segregation where movement was prohibited, residential movement was prohibited, and to this day, we are living in the historical shadows of that legacy. So that's all the more important reason why we must be able to be at the table, discuss these legacy challenges, overcome the legacy challenges with the solutions that many community leaders and members hold, right? But the policymakers will not know that unless these folks are at the table at the very beginning with the advocates who serve them, advocates like you, advocates like me.
That's a very real answer to a question that the communities ask all the time. They deserve that seat at the table. So Maya is going to be talking about something that's really taking hold, which is a green amendment to the state constitution. Many people believe that there already is a right to clean water and clean air. It is not within our state constitution. So this green amendment would add this within the Delaware state constitution. Why does Delaware need clean water and air as a constitutional right?
Today, people, although we, the people, believe we have the right to clean air, clean water, we don't. We really don't. And let's go back to that historical legacy that I spoke to. The issues impacted by race and racism, the issues impacted by class and classism, the fact that we have a regulatory system in our state and in our federal government that the federal regulatory and state governmental system is based on risk. So we say that it's okay for a certain number of people to be at risk. And with a certain number of people to be at risk, then that opens up the door for a certain number of people to be at risk without having access to clean water and clean air or access to water at all. We need a rights-based approach. We fundamentally need a rights-based approach to move the narrative of justice forward. We currently have a legislative fix called civil rights, and that is very important. I'm not saying we don't need civil rights. We do need civil rights. But in civil rights, we have to prove intent, that we have been discriminated based on race. We have to prove the intent. So it is left up to the individual to prove the intent from the United States government. That's not working. When we look at the disparity numbers, we are at an all-time high in disparities on health, well-being, environment. It's race, then economics are the factors of those who are impacted the most. And now that we are in the pandemic of COVID-19, when folks are told that they must wash their hands and hydrate their bodies, We're saying that you must wash your hands and hydrate your bodies with clean water. Now, we're equally saying those deeply impacted by COVID-19 are vulnerable populations. How are they made vulnerable? They're made vulnerable through the lack of access of clean, healthy water and air. Therefore, we need another tool in our governmental toolbox, if you will, and that is called let's lean to that of rights, a rights-based approach to make sure everyone has the right to clean air, everyone has the right to clean water. And with that, if that comes through a green amendment, then that's the way we need to go. And we can actually amend our state constitution to do so. What is equally important for everyone to know, I will never forget, Maria, we were also speaking one time about amending that. This is a side note, but this is very important. We were asking at that particular time, Lieutenant Governor John Carney, now Governor John Carney. No, I apologize. Congressional Representative John Carney. He's worn a many hats. But we asked him when he sought to become governor, his initial run, could we amend the state constitution for the human right to health for all? Right? That we know it would be a lift, but could we amend that? He said yes in front of everyone at the NAACP dinner that day. So equally, we now say, let's up the ante and have the human right to protection of water, clean, healthy water for all.
Well stated, Michelle. Again, we want to thank you for all your work on behalf of not only communities here in Delaware, but all throughout the country. So thank you. And we're going to move forward now with Maya and a little more about the Green Amendment.
So we are with Maya Van Rossum. Maya is our Delaware River Keeper. She and also the leader of the Delaware River Keeper Network. She has been there for over 26 years, if I'm not mistaken. She is also the founder of the Green Amendment, which is why we are here today for the Generations Movement. With that, she has authored a book that is called The Green Amendment, Securing Our Right to a Healthy Environment. And for those who are attending, you are getting, on behalf of Maya, a free copy of the book. So we thank Maya for that. Education is power. So let's get right into it. And Maya, tell us, what is the Green Amendment and why does Delaware need one?
Well, first off, Maria, thank you so much for the opportunity to share this important message, which I truly, truly believe in, because after 26 years of environmental advocacy and litigation, I have come to realize and recognize that our current system of environmental protection laws, whether you're in Delaware or any state across the nation, our current system of laws are fundamentally failing us because they are focused on permitting and managing pollution and environmental degradation, not preventing the harm in the first place. But what a Green Amendment does is it actually transforms that. And it does it in a really exciting and important way. A Green Amendment is an amendment that's added to the Bill of Rights section of our state constitution and recognizes and protects the inalienable rights of all people, regardless of race, ethnicity, income, religion, or whether or not they are from the present or future generations. It recognizes and protects the rights of all the people to pure water, clean air, a stable climate, and healthy environments, and the duty of every government official at every level of government in the state to protect the natural resources of the state for the benefit of all the people, including present and future generations. And so it ends up placing the right to a healthy environment, to clean water and clean air and healthy environments on par with those other fundamental human, civil, and political rights we hold dear. Things like the right to free speech and freedom of religion, private property rights, civil rights, and more. And it, in how it gets implemented, it necessarily focuses government on preventing pollution and preventing environmental degradation first. That is the starting place when government is engaged in its actions, activities, and decision-making, whether it's legislation, regulations, permitting, or whatever. And so as a result, it totally flips and transforms our environmental protection legal system in Delaware, or any place where you have a green amendment, from a system focused on prevention of harm rather than a system that's focused on accepting pollution and degradation and environmental racism, and simply trying to manage it at the back end at the end of the decision-making process when, frankly, it's too late to really make a truly meaningful difference.
So there are 2 states now that have a green amendment within their state constitution. One is my home state, and that is Pennsylvania. The other is Montana. So tell me, what other states are leaning towards passing this? Because I know this is gaining traction all over our country.
Yeah, so, we really, in my role as the Delaware Riverkeeper, we were really responsible for taking a long ignored constitutional environmental rights amendment in the Pennsylvania Constitution and breathing legal life into it and really making it something powerful and meaningful and transformative when it comes to environmental protection and environmental justice. In the wake of this important victory that we actually accomplished in December of 2013 through a decision we secured out of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and as we were going forward, taking advantage of that incredible victory, trying to advance environmental rights across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I started to look at every single state constitution across our nation and found that, in fact, there was only that one other state that has what I now have come to define a constitutional green amendment, and that's Montana. And it's a green amendment for a lot of reasons, but long story short, it's a green amendment if it recognizes and protects environmental rights in the same way we recognize and protect those other fundamental rights that we hold dear. And so I started then to, realize the power and importance of having this kind of constitutional amendment added to the Bill of Rights section of every single state constitution across our nation, and ultimately at the federal level. And so I founded the Green Amendments for the Generations movement. I wrote the book, The Green Amendment, and I have been traveling across the nation, working with communities, trying to educate them and inspire them to want to seek and secure this highest level of constitutional protection of their own environmental rights and environments. And at this point, we have just had an amazing response. And at this point, we have Green Amendment proposals that have been made in 5 states already: New York, New Jersey, Maryland, West Virginia, and Vermont. And we're anticipating Green Amendments being proposed in the coming year or two in a number of other states, including New Mexico and Oregon, and Maine. And then there's, in other states even further, there's this great growing awareness and education. Amongst them is the state of Delaware, Kentucky, Arizona, and more. So, Delaware would be, if Delaware were to go forth and try to seek and secure the passage of a green amendment added to the state constitution, it could be on the cutting edge of this powerful, transformative environmental protection movement and really helping to lead the way to inspire other states to want to follow this path of recognizing the rights of all people to a healthy environment.
So Delaware is the first state, and it is very important not only to me, but to all the people that are in fence line communities on the ground to be one of the first, at least, to get this passed. So what is the process for doing this in Delaware, and how do folks get more information about how to support this?
So for the state of Delaware to have a constitutional amendment, one of the powerful places or pathways to accomplish that is really to begin with the legislators, and to have the legislators recognize how important it is to recognize and protect environmental rights in the Bill of Rights section of the Constitution, and to get them to advance and pass forward this important idea. And ultimately, the decision will be placed before the people to make a decision in an upcoming election. Every single state has a different process for passing a constitutional amendment. Wherever you are, though, whether your state has an easier process or a harder process, it's a difficult process. It is a high hurdle. And that's actually one of the benefits of having a constitutional environmental rights amendment, because while it is harder to get the Constitution amended, that means it's also harder to roll back the protection once it's secured. And that's one of the powerful benefits of having a constitutional environmental rights amendment. We are working with you, Maria, and SRAP. We are working to inspire communities in the state of Delaware to want to advance this important idea. If folks want to get informed and engaged and involved, then they could go to www.forthegenerations.org, and there is a special page for the state of Delaware where you can get informed about what is happening and how you can get involved. And when we get enough enthusiasm and energy, we're going to take that page on the forthegenerations.org website, and we're going to make it its own freestanding website. And either way, if you want to get to that page or you want to get to that more robust website down the road, another pathway to get there is www.de for Delaware, degreenamendment.org. And you'll find everything you need to get educated and involved right there.
People of Pennsylvania woke up to the fact that they've been raped by the coal companies and steel companies and railroad. Their landscape, their environment had been ravished and exploited bitterly. They kind of like a sleeping giant, the people woke up and said, enough is enough.
You got the largest law firms hired by big companies trying to literally obliterate families.
We talk far less than we should about the environmental impacts in underserved communities. We want to be just as committed to the environment in an urban community as we are in the great vistas of our state.
The right to pure water, clean air, and a healthy environment are inherent and indefeasible rights. These are rights that don't just belong to the people here today, but they belong to all the future generations yet to come.
Our whole world is our environment.
Are you concerned about the environment?
Very much, yes.
This is a heavy industrial activity that you're allowing to occur in the backyards of families, next door to schools, next to malls. And you're giving that industry, a heavy industry that has a huge climate and environmental impact, carte blanche to do whatever the hell they want, wherever the hell they want, whenever they want, with protections.
We are having to do the work of continuing to hold that industry accountable for their insults and assaults on the environment and on communities.
And we looked at it, and we looked at our Constitution. We said pretty clearly that you overstepped the bounds. You took away people's rights. So I wrote this 156-page opinion that said you got to go back and do it right.
Court had given life to the Environmental Rights Amendment for the first time. So it was it was very exciting.
I think I felt it for a moment. And then it was really like, okay, Now, what do we do with this?
You know, in the state of Pennsylvania, they actually have a green amendment that ensures that Pennsylvania residents are entitled to clean air, clean water, and healthy environment. What do you think about that as an idea?
It's a good idea.
Clean water, clean air, uncontaminated land, all of those things should be guaranteed in the Constitution.
We need justice for everybody in every community, and we're not going to get there unless it's recognized by the state through the Green Amendment.
We're all beings. We all live on this planet together. Now we can either sit back and ignore that fact and let the world crash and burn, or we can do something about it and live together peacefully.
The fact is, seeing these millions of younger people are making a valid point, and we older people should pay attention to it and get moving with it.
We are the first generation who will experience climate change, but we're also the last generation who will be able to do something about it.
I don't want to just exist. I want to be able to live. Hello. My name is Penny Dryden. I am the Executive Director of Community Housing and Empowerment Connections, Inc., and I chair the Delaware Environmental Justice Community Partnership, as well as the Delaware Concerned Residents for Environmental Justice. It's my pleasure to share with you how building local partnerships help move environmental justice forward in Delaware. First, I must share that our environmental justice work is guided by the Hemmings principles that include, be inclusive, bottom-up processes. We speak for ourselves, work in solidarity, build just relationships, and commitment to self-transformation. So this slide shows pictures of the industrial facilities, major highways, and truck traffic that's causing air quality issues for communities along the Route 13 and Route 40 corridors in Bear, Delaware, in Newcastle County. The boundary for this area begins at the Route 13 and 40 split down to 72. So starting to the left is the newly constructed DOT distribution center on 72. It serves DOT's distributor customers in eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. The company distributes food service, convenience, retail, and vending products to distributors in all 50 states and more than 35 countries, all in our backyard. At the top center is the DART Container Corporation, which is still under construction, where we see thousands of trucks docked and others moving in and out daily. The Delaware City Refinery with active smokestacks, as you see there in the image, sits right next to the DART facility, and we know the legacy of air pollution that has taken place there over the years. All of this occurring within a 2-mile radius of each other and in close proximity to people's homes and no air monitoring anywhere. Here we have the Route 9 corridor, industrial corridor, where communities also have experienced legacies, issues of air pollution over decades. The waste management DRPI landfill sought permit to increase height to 190 feet, but was met with opposition by county government and neighboring communities, but was allowed eventually an additional 10 feet. So they went from 135 feet to 135 to 145 feet. And so next is the infamous Crota plant, which just a month ago was hit with a notice of violation by DEMREC for a number of violations and forced to cease operation until a resolution was reached. The Delaware Environmental Justice Community Partnership called for commitment for a community information forum and support for community air monitoring. before approval to allow Crota to open back up. Delaware Environmental Justice Community Partnership also appealed a previous settlement. A previous settlement agreement due to the lack of community input and called for provisions for a community advisory council, an emergency alert system, and air monitoring. The Belvedere and Newport communities are located near the, as you see there to the left, the former DuPont plant that is currently operating, but I'm not sure what the name it's operating under. And within a mile of it is the former GM plant, which is currently being constructed as the Amazon distribution center across the street from so many homes. And in that top photo there, as we all know, as we travel in and out of the Newport area, the major highway 95 runs right over top of the homes in the Belvedere and Newport communities. So, and that's a legacy of pollution that they have been enduring. So the partnership is composed of community residents, environmental justice advocates, and state and public officials. And I also would note that the partnership serves as the steering committee for the Community Air Monitoring Network. So included as our local partners, CHEC serves as the lead agency, the NAACP, State Health Committee, Clean Air Council, the Sierra Club, Delaware Chapter, the Delaware Concerned Residents for Environmental Justice, the Minority Workforce Development Corporation, the Sociably Responsible Agriculture Project, the Sussex Health Environmental Outreach Program, and the state agencies, the the Department of Public Health, DENREC, the regulatory agency, and Axel is the research partner. And we're currently recruiting the Department of Transportation and Newcastle County representation. So here we show the flow chart for the partnership. So at the top center is the Delaware Environmental Justice Community Partnership that houses the website for the initiative, and to the left are the allies. That include the Green for All, the EJHA, the National Environmental Justice Network, just to name a few. And to the right is the Community Air Monitoring Network Steering Committee. And Delaware being a small state, we are able to place a environmental justice coalition in each county. So to the left, the most northern part of the state is the Newcastle County Coalition. Then it's the Kent County Coalition and the Sussex County Community Coalition. And each one of these coalitions are responsible for identifying and serving the communities within our counties, as you see the three bottom bubbles there. And so the success of this partnership has set the table for planning and to bring a community air monitoring to Delaware. We solicit everyone's support in moving this project forward because we all know air pollution is a major threat to human health worldwide. So we look forward to sharing more about this with all of you. And that concludes my presentation, and I thank you so very much.
Sussex County is a really interesting place because it has such, believe it or not, a diverse population. Most people think of it as primarily white. think a lot of people think of it as primarily agricultural, or a lot of people think of it because of the beaches and the like. But it's a pretty diverse population of people down here. And something people also don't think about, especially people who move here from elsewhere, they don't realize where the water comes from. They don't realize that everybody down here gets their water from a well. Even if you live in a city, for example, if you live in Lewis or you live in Milton, you get water supply, you turn on your tap. The water is coming from the ground, from a well. If you live in one of the outlying communities, of which there are very many growing, most of those get their water from private drinking wells. So you have your own personal well in a lot of cases. And if you live out on a farm or a single house, it's the same thing. What people don't realize is whether or not that water is really, how safe is that water to drink? And I have to say, I moved down here 9 years ago, full time, and I didn't really think that much about it. Only when I started hearing about problems with drinking water violations, some of it related to contamination from chicken processing plants and their discharge, is how it was fouling the water, the surface water, the creeks and whatever. But then there was also a problem with drinking water itself, because the surface water, people see creeks, they see the wetlands. What they don't think about is the groundwater, what's actually underneath the ground where your well is. Well, a lot of that is actually contaminated as well, also contaminated. And whether it's nitrates or other things. There's no requirement that those wells be tested. You might not even realize it, because a lot of these contaminants are odorless, colorless, and you might not realize that you're getting sick. So, and this is a pervasive problem. The extent is not known because we don't do extensive testing. If one neighborhood, if somebody finds a problem in their neighborhood, they might say something to the neighbors might test it and find out. In some instances, some of the big industrial facilities around here, for example, there was a complaints in the area around Millsboro in particular, where that led to a lot of investigation of people looking into the drinking water and realizing they had a high nitrate levels. I think there were some other problems, but then that really got people's attention. Some other contaminations, some spot contaminations, like down in the Seaford area with the drinking water. That's a little bit different, but anyway, the spotlight was put on the drinking water. But again, a lot of people don't know about it because they don't think it affects them. They don't think it's harmful in their areas, but we don't know. But everybody should have the right to be able to drink the water and not worry about, is it going to make them sick? Is it going to harm them? Is it going to give them cancer? And given the high cancer rates throughout the state, it's a concern. And the same with air pollution. That's less of a focus down here because the winds blow across the open cornfields and people don't think about it. But there's a lot of truck traffic through here. There's a lot of particulate matter, whether it's dust, whether it's coming from pesticides, and it's not just agricultural pesticides, pesticides that people put on their lawn because they want that golf course look. And that can seep into the ground as well. So what people really should be concerned about, is it safe to drink the water, and is it safe to breathe the air? And we don't do an adequate job of testing the environment.
I'm getting more comfortable.
Okay, so here we go. We're going dark.
It came from Mel Gibson. Freedom!
When I could see you. Yeah, that's right. That's right. There you go. All right, good luck, folks.